My name is Ashley Turner. I am 35 years old. And on a Tuesday afternoon in October, I got a phone call that split my life cleanly into two halves, everything before it and everything after. It started the way every morning started. Ryan kissed me goodbye at the front door. He was in his usual work clothes, navy slacks, a gray button-down, the leather messenger bag he had carried every weekday for 4 years. He smelled like the cedarwood soap he always used. He said what he always said. "Long day at work, babe. Don't wait up." I smiled. I waved him off. I went back inside to my coffee and my laptop and the freelance marketing project I was halfway through, and I did not think about it again. At 2:15 in the afternoon, my phone rang. The number on the screen was Ryan's office, Crestwood Financial Group, where he had worked as a senior loan officer for 6 years. I assumed it was his assistant calling with some scheduling thing, the way offices sometimes call spouses when they can't reach the employee directly. I answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Turner?" A woman's voice. Professional, careful, with something underneath the professional tone that I would later identify as discomfort. "This is Carol from HR at Crestwood. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm trying to reach Ryan. Is he reachable today?" I told her he was at work. There was a pause. A pause just long enough to matter. "Ma'am," she said, "he hasn't come in. Not today. Not all week." I sat there in silence. My hands started shaking before my mind had fully processed the sentence. The body understands things faster than the conscious brain does, and my body understood immediately that something was very wrong. I thanked Carol. I told her I would have Ryan call her. I set the phone down on the table and looked at it for a moment. Then I opened the location sharing app that Ryan and I had set up 2 years earlier, after I had a minor car accident, and he had been unreachable for 40 minutes and came home to find me shaken and him pale with guilt. We had agreed to share locations after that. Just for safety, we said. Just so we could find each other if something happened. I opened it and I searched for Ryan. A blue dot appeared on the map. Not downtown. Not near Crestwood Financial. Not anywhere I recognized. A street called Delancey Place. A residential neighborhood 20 minutes from our house in Cincinnati, Ohio. A street I had never heard of. I drove there without thinking. And when I saw what was inside the house where my husband's location said he was, I thought my heart had stopped. I was dead wrong about everything. And nothing was ever the same again. But before I tell you what actually happened, please like and subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's begin. Ryan and I had been married for 7 years. We met in our late 20s through a mutual friend at a birthday party in Cincinnati. He was funny and warm and had the particular quality I have always found most attractive in people. He was genuinely interested in things. Books, local history, how engines worked, why certain buildings were designed the way they were. He asked questions and remembered the answers. He made the people around him feel like what they said mattered. We dated for 1.5 years and then got married on a warm June afternoon in his parents' backyard. It was simple and happy and felt like the beginning of something solid. And for a long time it was. We bought a house in Oakley. I built a freelance marketing consultancy from my home office. Ryan moved up at Crestwood from loan officer to senior loan officer, respected by his colleagues, reliable in the way people describe someone who never gives them a reason to worry. We were good as far as I knew. I want to hold on to that phrase, as far as I knew, because it turned out there was quite a lot I didn't know. Not in the way I feared in those 20 minutes I drove across Cincinnati with my hands rigid on the steering wheel. Something altogether different. Something I could not have predicted and am still, even now, processing how to talk about. Delancey Place was a quiet residential street lined with older homes, craftsman bungalows, small yards, mature trees dropping leaves in the October afternoon. It was the kind of neighborhood that looks exactly as it should look. Nothing remarkable, nothing that would make you slow down and look twice if you were simply driving through. I was not simply driving through. I found the address because the blue on my phone had resolved itself to a specific house, a narrow yellow craftsman with a concrete front path and 2 maple trees in the yard. I parked across the street. I sat in the car for a moment with the engine running, looking at the house, trying to decide what I believed I was about to discover and whether I was ready to discover it. Ryan's car was in the driveway. I got out. I crossed the street. I went to the front door, and I knocked. 30 seconds passed. I knocked again. The door opened. Ryan was standing there. In jeans and a t-shirt, no messenger bag, no work clothes. He had changed at some point between leaving our house at 8 in the morning and now. His face, when he saw me, moved through 3 distinct expressions in under 2 seconds. The first was shock. The second was something more complicated that I still don't have a single word for. The third was a strange, exhausted relief, like a person who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and has just been told they can set it down. Ashley, he said. Who lives here? I said. He stepped back. He held the door open. And he said, come inside. I'll explain everything. The inside of the house was the thing that stopped my heart. I had prepared myself, in the car across the street, for the explanations that would require a lawyer and the packing of suitcases and the calling of my sister to come stay with me. I had prepared myself for evidence of another woman, for some secret parallel life assembled behind my back. What I saw instead was a workshop. The living room of the Yellow Craftsman had been completely cleared of any furniture a living room normally contains. In its place were workbenches. A large table covered with woodworking tools, planes, chisels, clamps, sandpaper in graduated grades lined up along one edge. Along the far wall, a pegboard hung with more tools organized with a precision that told me immediately this was not a casual hobby. In the corner near the window, partially assembled, was a rocking chair. Solid oak, hand-jointed, the kind of piece that takes months of careful work to produce. On a shelf above the workbench were 8 more. Finished pieces, 2 rocking chairs, a small side table, a jewelry box, a child's toy chest with hand-carved lettering on the front. I stood in the doorway of that living room, and I looked at all of it. Then I turned and looked at my husband. He was watching me with that exhausted, relieved expression, his hands loose at his sides. He looked, I thought, like himself, like the person I had married, but also like a person I was meeting for the first time. How long? I said. 18 months, he said. I counted backwards in my head. 18 months ago, Ryan had been passed over for a promotion at Crestwood that he had been working toward for 2 years. He had come home that evening and said he was fine and eaten dinner and helped with the dishes and been, as far as I could tell, fine. I had believed him completely. You didn't get the promotion, I said slowly. He looked at the floor. I stopped wanting the promotion about 3 months before they gave it to someone else. I just didn't know how to say that. I didn't know how to say any of it. What Ryan told me in that Craftsman kitchen over 2 cups of coffee that I made with hands that were no longer shaking took about an hour to get through completely. The version I will give you here is shorter. Ryan had spent 6 years at Crestwood Financial doing work he was competent at but had never loved. He had not known how to say this, first himself and then to me, because he was someone who took his responsibilities seriously and because he believed, incorrectly as it turned out, that I needed him to be the version of himself that was reliable and employed and advancing at a reputable financial firm. When he was passed over for the promotion, something released in him. Not bitterness. More like clarity. He had started thinking about the woodworking he had done as a teenager in his father's garage, before college and careers and adult responsibility had organized his life into something more conventional. He had looked up workshop rental spaces in Cincinnati. He had found the Yellow Craftsman on Delancey Place, owned by an older man named Harold, who rented the ground floor as a working space and lived in the 2 floors above it. Ryan had been renting that workshop space for 18 months. He had told Crestwood he was taking a leave of absence 4 months ago. They had granted it, apparently without notifying me, because Ryan was in good standing and the leave was handled through proper channels. He had been coming to Delancey Place 5 days a week while I sat in our house in Oakley believing he was at his desk in a financial firm downtown. He had been making furniture. I was going to tell you, he said. I was going to have enough to show you first. I wanted it to be real before I said it out loud. It is real, I said. I looked through the kitchen doorway at the rocking chair in the corner. Ryan, it is obviously real. He looked at me. Are you angry? I thought about that carefully. The honest answer required a moment. I'm angry that you didn't tell me, I said. I'm not angry about the rest of it. He nodded slowly. I was frightened, he said. I thought you needed me to be something specific. I needed you to be honest, I said. That's a different thing. We sat in that kitchen for another hour. Outside, the maple trees in the yard dropped leaves in the October afternoon, and the light shifted and moved across the old wooden floor of the Craftsman, and I looked at my husband, the man I had married, who I had believed I knew completely, and understood that knowing someone is not a destination you arrive at and stay. It is a practice, continuous and requiring attention. I had stopped practicing. So had he. Ryan left Crestwood formally 2 weeks after that afternoon. He and Harold, the owner of the Yellow Craftsman, who turned out to be a 71-year-old retired woodworking teacher with an instinct for good character, worked out an arrangement where Ryan took on the upstairs workshop space as well and began operating as a proper furniture maker with a business license and a name, Turner Handmade. He has 5 clients now. He is building a dining table for a family in Hyde Park and a set of bookshelves for a law office downtown and a cradle, the most careful work I have ever watched another person do, for a friend who is expecting her first child in February. I sat down with him properly after that afternoon on Delancey Place, and we talked for several evenings about honesty, and about what we had each been afraid of, and about what kind of marriage we wanted to have. Those were not easy conversations. They were necessary ones. He should have told me. I believe that fully. The deception, even a deception made of fear rather than malice, cost us something that we are still in the process of rebuilding. But what I found inside that Yellow Craftsman house was not what I had spent 20 minutes across town preparing to find. It was not betrayal in the way I had imagined betrayal. It was my husband, alone in a room full of wood and tools and careful handmade things, trying to figure out who he was when the version he had been performing for years no longer fit.
I know something about that.
I think most people do. And nothing was ever the same again, which turned out, in the end, to be exactly what we needed.